Hello everyone, it's Karina with Karina Loves to Plan. Welcome back to my channel. I am back for this month's 15 inks 30 days. Now this is my iteration of 30 inks 30 days. I found that 30 inks 30 days was just too overwhelming for me, but I still wanted to participate. So I'm changing the rules around a bit and doing only 15 inks in 30 days. This allows me to use the ink for 2 days in my journal, but also gives me a little bit more time to play around with it. And then I don't have 30 pens inked at the end of the month. I only have 15, which is a lot more manageable. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to do a swatch with the name of the pen and the ink, along with my rating of it. And then I'm going to also put this in my journal. And with the journal, I'll already actually show you one example. I'm going to be painting roses in my journal. This I won't show in the video, but I will be doing 2 pages in my A5 multi-year journal. And then I will also be doing, and this one is actually my fun bit here, this is my A6 Hobonichi Hone, and I will be doing swatches of each pen and ink. So I will do paper swatches as well as a Zentangle and a little rose down at the bottom. Let's get started. The first ink I will be using is the Amario Stationary Teal Waistband. This was given to me by Eric at the Chicago Pen Show, and I have it inked in my newest Franklin Christoph. This is a Model 3 in the antique glass. Oh, I love that so much. And this has an extra fine SIG nib. And then that means, for anyone who doesn't know, that SIG means stub italic gradient. Let's see here. I'm going to swatch here with my Speedball B nib in the size 0, as well as my Kakimori steel nib, and these are on my River City Penco nib holders. So first thing I am going to do is actually do, let me see if I can do this, do the number 1. That's not neat at all. Oh my gosh, maybe I should just choose a smaller pen, but that's cute. Look at that, that's beautiful. Then I'm actually referring back to what I did in April. Like, what did this look like in April? If I can remember. See, oh, I did there. Okay, I can do this. It's like, why did I completely forget everything that I did? So I will do some figure 8s here. And then I'll do some line widths as well. Oh, I love that already. I think the number 1 is fun there. All right, so let's clean off my pen. So the first ink is Amario Stationary in teal waistband, and this is in my Franklin Christoph, and this is the Model 3 in antique in glass, and this has an extra fine, wow, I cannot write today, extra fine SIG nib. My apologies, Model 31. So now I'll go ahead and do some swatching in my A6 Hobonichi Hone. And I always like to do a swatch directly on the Tomoe River paper. Now this is a 2024 A6 Hone, so it doesn't have the same paper as all of the 2025 planners. And here we are on the Rhodia, the Regalia, which unfortunately I may have a bad batch of this, but I'm still willing to give it a try. Then I now have the Aerofil paper, which was sent to me by Kat since I ran out of the Cosmo Airlight. Then we have Onion Skin, Yamamoto Bank, which I got at the San Francisco Pen Show last year. And then lastly, the bank paper. And I love this bank paper. And then I will do a quick rose at the bottom. I always love to do the roses because they're such a great way to showcase the shading properties of inks, but also when you add a little bit of water to the brush, which I will do right now, you can get some of the chroma shading properties in here too. Look at that. Beautiful. Really pretty color. And also with the roses, I think they're so simple in terms of artwork, but I feel like it adds so much. So now I'm going to do the Zentangle by measuring out the grid using my Michaels ruler that I purchased years ago. Don't know where you can find it again, sorry. And then this Zentangle, actually most of my Zentangles are inspired by the Instagram account Varney K. Carney. And I love this one because this one can make use of the extra fine sig nib in the horizontal narrow strokes and then the downstrokes, which are broad. All right, so I have used this pen for 2 journal entries plus a couple of days of work notes, and I'm actually loving this pen. I wish I could use it for longer. And this ink as well is lovely, fantastic. And did I use this? I feel like I used it in one of my paintings, or I tried to, but so far, lovely. I really, truly love this combination. The ink flows well out of this extra fine sig nib, which is really smooth and slicey. I love the Model 31. I gave the ink a 9 because I kind of wish the ink swatch looked more like the writing or vice versa. The flow a 9 and the comfort level, the Model 31 a 9. The 9 is a really, really great score all around for this pen, and I'm so glad I ended up purchasing this at the San Francisco, I keep saying that, Chicago pen show. I feel like this rounds out my Franklin Christoph collection because this one is beautiful, and I said to myself for months that I didn't need this, but now that I have it, I'm so glad it is in my collection. So before I even do that, let's look at the Zentangle. So there's Amario Stationary teal waistband on all the papers. And I love that on the Tomoy River paper, there's little areas of yellowish green coming out, which is really pretty. But it looks more blue on the Regalia paper and then looks more green on the bank and the Yamamoto bank and the onion skin. But it's interesting to me how it looks more blue on the Arofil and the Regalia paper. And then this Zentangle was so fun with the extra fine sig nib, with the broad downstrokes and the narrow cross strokes. It just made doing this really, really fun because of the variations in the line width. And then my lovely rose. So that is my Franklin Christoph Model 31 in antique glass with Amario Stationary teal waistband. The next ink is Autumn Night After 1,000 Years. Sorry for the blurry here. There we go. Now it is in focus. And this is kind of a grayish green with gold shimmer. I really liked the look of this on the Wearingeul website. And this is inked in my Heinz Pen Co. Texas Orchid in the Model K. And I love that I could basically match this with any ink. But look at that fuchsia nib. That is really, really cool. So then what I'm going to do here is write out the number 2 with my Speedball B nib. This is not something I do very often, so it is a little bit awkward for me, but I actually like the way that it turned out. Then doing a quick swatch. I find doing the swatches with these Speedball B nibs really, really satisfying. I think it really brings out the shading qualities of the ink. And then I'm going to switch over to my Kakimori steel nib to do the figure 8s and then do the line widths as well. So the Kakimori steel or the stainless steel nib is actually my favorite, my preferred one over the brass nib. I feel like I can get a finer line with this, but also I love the line widths with this. The line swatches just turn out so, so well with this. And then I'm going to go ahead and see here, that's that green. That's what I wanted to match this ink to, but also you could really match this pen to almost any ink, like that yellow or that pink. So then we have Wearingeul, Autumn. This is a really long name. The Autumn Night after 1,000 years. And I'm finding already that the shimmer isn't too prominent, and it makes me wonder if I actually have shimmer in my converter. So this is the Heinz Penco in the Model K in the Texas Orchid, and this was a commission done for me by Heinz Penco, and I picked this up in Chicago, and it's got that extra fine nib. I love that fuchsia nib. So pretty. All right, let's go ahead and paint in the A6 Hone. Look at the way that that looks on the Tomoe River paper. Then we have the Rhodia and the Regalia and the Erofil paper, the onion skin, the Yamamoto bank, and lastly the bank paper. Just look at, I love that, the grayish green of that. I really like that. I think that's gorgeous. And then I'm going to go ahead and paint my rose. So now we'll go ahead and paint my rose. And in the future, you know, once I actually have a little bit more time to myself, I'd love to do more training in drawing other flowers and doing things other than Zentangles, but also painting other flowers, and do that as part of the ink exploration, because I think being able to paint with inks is so fun, but also it's a great way to train your hand to be able to do different pressures, like the lower pressure, light pressure that you see in a lot of these loose florals, but also just the way that the ink looks with water. So now I'm taking my Michaels grid ruler to draw out the grid for the Zentangles. And then I like this one for the extra fine nibs just because there's so much line detail in here. These are really fun to do, and I just find the repetitive nature of them so relaxing. Now, I love this pen, but I was a little disappointed with the ink. The shimmer feels inconsistent, and even though the base color is beautiful, I really wanted shimmer. So I gave the ink a 6 because I want that shimmer. I gave the flow a 7 because I feel like the flow affected the shimmer, but then the comfort level of the Heinz Penco Model K, a 9. And there are the paper comparisons and the Zentangle. And I love how the Zentangle looks with the kind of grayish green going around, but you can see here, and I'll bring it closer as well, how inconsistent that shimmer is. Like there's a little bit here and then maybe a little bit here, but not much throughout the rest of it. So yeah, I was disappointed by the inconsistency in the shimmer there. And then it's so interesting looking at all the different papers because it looks, this ink looks so brown gray on the onion skin, the Yamamoto bank and the bank, but then it looks gray on the Erofil and just gray on the Regalia. You don't see much of that green coming through, which is really interesting. And then even in the writing, you get more of that kind of grayish green there, but after all that, it really does look more gray than the green that I was expecting, which is unfortunate because from my first impressions of it when I first got it, I really loved it, but it might be an ink bottle that I have to give away. So that is Wearingeul, the Autumn Night After 1,000 Years with my Heinz Penco Texas Orchid. The next ink, or ink 3 out of the 15 inks 30 days, is Anderellium Tulip Moth Warm. I got a sample of this ink, I can't remember when, and then I've been wanting a bottle ever since, and I finally found it at the Chicago Pen Show, so I was very excited to be able to get that. So now putting a little bit on my Speedball V nib here. Let's see if I can do the number 3 neatly. Okay, not too bad. I will take that. Then putting some on my Kakimori brass nib here. I really like this brown. It's a really creamy brown. Oh, I should put this on the speedball nib instead. And it's one of those that is like got a creamy texture to it. I mean, not a creamy texture, but you know what I mean in terms of the way that it looks as a brown. It's one of those creamy, warm, comforting browns. Beautiful. Love that. Oh, I forgot to mention what I actually have it inked in. I have it inked in my Zodiac Pen Co. And this is in the Capricorn model. Yes, the Capricorn model. And this is in the Poorly Controlled Bourbon and Smoke. So we now have the, oh, and it's got an extra fine nib. So this is Anderellium. And this is Tulip, Moth, Worm. And this is in my Zodiac Pen Co. Capricorn in the Bourbon and Smoke. And this has an extra fine nib. Lovely, lovely. And now let's go ahead and paint some in my Hobonichi A6 Hone, first on the Tomoe River paper. I love how pink that brown looks. And then on the Rhodia. Now I was looking back through the inks that I had used this year, and Anderellium Tulip Mothworm was actually an ink that I used in January. But I wanted to see if there would be some difference in terms of the bottle versus the sample. I'm hoping not. There shouldn't be, but we'll see. Oh, I love this. Look at the way that it's already shading on the Tomoe River paper. Let's do my rose. And why did I decide to do a rose of all things? For me, the rose is just a bunch of C curves. So light pressure, heavy pressure, light pressure. And I know that I could do other florals as well, but I like how I really focus on my hand here and the pressure that I put on the brush. Kind of like with brush lettering. But I also like being able to see the different shading effects. Okay, that last one was kind of meh, all over the place, but adding a little bit more in here while it's still wet. Some of the ones in the middle are a little drier, so there we go. This was such a fun combination. I had such a great flow out of this extra fine nib, and the shading in this ink is stunning. And this pen model, the Capricorn model, is so comfortable. So I gave the ink a 10, the flow of the ink a 10, and the comfort level of this pen a 10. There's something about this particular model that I really like. I don't know, it just rests in this area of my hand, the pearly Q. It rests so comfortably in there, but also the material just feels nice and cool to the touch. I don't know what it is, but I really enjoy holding this pen. So now let's take a look at the Zentangle. So this one was a fun one to swatch because it looks brown, but then when you swatch it on these papers, it looks pink, or like rusty pinky brown, which is why I really like this ink. From the tiny lines here, it looks more brown, and then when you get the shading, you can really see that dusty brown pink, which is why I love this. And here, when I do the paint swatch on the Tomoe River paper, it really comes off this dusty, rusty brown pink. And You can see more brown in the regalia paper and the aerofil, but then more pink in the onion skin, the Yamamoto bank, and the bank. And then when I did the wet on dry on this rose here, you can really see the difference adding water makes to the ink. So that is Anderellium Tulip Moth Warm with my Zodiac Penco Capricorn in Bourbon and Smoke. And here we have ink number 4, or ink and pen pairing number 4. It is Amario Stationary Toasty Joggers, and I have it in my new Esterbrook Model J in Peachy Caramel. This was a prototype that I purchased at the Chicago Pen Show. So I've actually put some of the ink in my little tray here just to make it easier so I don't have to keep re-dipping into the bottle. Painting the number 4. I really like this ink because it looks almost yellow when it first goes down, and then when it dries, it's really interesting the way that it looks when it's dry. It's closer to that peachy caramel once it's dry. Love that. But also for the ink, let me just move my water here. I don't know why I have it all the way over there. It's actually quite a legible ink. So now I've got it on my Kakimori brass, steel nib. Oh, I love that. I love this steel nib so much. Beautiful. Then the ink is Amarillo. Oh my gosh, it's so smooth coming out of this extra fine nib. Amario Stationary. And it is Toasty Joggers. Whoa, cannot spell. Joggers. And this is in my Esterbrook Model J in Peachy Caramel, although I don't agree with the name of this pen. But anyway, I mean, I want you guys to wait to see until it dries. I'll show it when I'm done, and I'll show it once the ink is dried. Now in my Hobonichi A6 Hone, I'm going to paint on the Tomoe River paper, and then on the Rhodia here. I find this practice so relaxing, although somebody did mention that if I really wanted to start comparing all of the inks and the different properties and what makes them different, I need to get chromatography strips. And I'm like, do I really want to go down that rabbit hole? I'm having fun with this. I feel like chromatography strips would just set me over the edge in terms of doing that one thing too much. And then let's zoom in to do the rose. And I've had a couple of people either message me or comment saying that they've also purchased an A6 notebook or Hone from 2024 to do their own ink explorations like this. And that's fantastic. I love hearing that, because it's such a great way to use up your ink, but also to see ink in a different light other than just writing with it. And I love these roses. They're just so fun and relaxing. Lovely. So here I am drawing out the grid for my Zentangle. This is a ruler that I purchased from Michael's like 7 or 8 years ago, and I don't know where you can find another ruler like it. And then this pattern that I'm drawing for the Zentangle is from Varney Kikarni on Instagram. I'll leave a link to their account in the description below. But I love all of their designs. They're just simple, easy to follow, but then once you create it yourself, it's just so lovely. I love this combination. It was such a fun ink color, and it's got above average flow out the extra fine nib, and it has fantastic shading, but also other than it being fun to write with, the way that this ink goes down versus the way it dries, I love the difference in that. So I gave the ink a 10 because it's fantastic, the flow a 10, and the comfort level of the Model J a 10. So 10s all around for this combination. But if you look at how Toasty Joggers dries, it goes down a yellow, but then it dries to a more kind of peachy caramel like this Model J, which is really interesting. So I'll now show you the Zentangle. So there is the finished Zentangle, but also the way that the ink looks on these papers once dried definitely looks more yellowy, golden orange on the onion skin, the Yamamoto bank, and the bank. But then up here, it looks more like that peachy caramel of the pen. Really interesting. But then on the Tomoe River paper, it feels like it's a little bit in between these sets of papers. But then with the Zentangle, with the finer strokes of the pen, the ink dries closer to the color of this pen. It's really, really interesting to me. But then you can really see the shading. You can see some parts that are a little bit more golden, and then the areas where the ink pools is where you get more of this kind of peachy caramel color. Fantastic ink by Amario Stationery. So that is Toasty Joggers in my Esterbrook Model J in Peachy Caramel. Pen and ink combination number 5 is Amario Stationery Wearingeul Kicks with my Zodiac pen coat in the Sagittarius model in an unnamed resin. I love that you can pretty much put any color of ink in here. You can do red, orange, green, blue, purple. Love it. So, oh, I already have some in my palette. So let's take some on my Speedball B-nib here and write the number 5. It's actually really difficult for me to write with such a broad tip like the Speedball B-nib. I find it funny. Okay, and then doing the swatch, trying to get some shading in there. Then I'm going to use my stainless steel nib. If I can get some on my nib there. I didn't think that I would go for an ink like this. It's kind of like an orangey red, but I really like it, and I think it matches with this pen perfectly. All right, so then let's write. This has an extra fine, oh no, what is this? This is the Chicago Pen Show nib, and it's an extra fine nib. So it's the Chicago Pen Show nib that Kirk Spear did. So the ink is Amario Stationery. And I didn't get anything special done to this nib just because I didn't have enough time with Kirk. So it is Wearingeul Kicks in my Zodiac Penco. I'm just going to say Sagittarius because I do not know. We don't have a name for this yet. We don't have a name for this yet. And it is an extra fine nib. Look at that though. I mean, isn't it such a great match, Brett? Great match. Lovely. So now we'll go ahead and paint in my A6 Hobonichi Hone. I feel like I'm going to run out of here. Look at that. Again, it's not a color that I would normally go for, but I'm excited to use it. It looks more orange here, but then I think once it dries, it does look a little bit more red. Oh my gosh, I am going to need more ink. I'm going to need more. Oh, that's lovely. And lastly, on the bank paper, it looks lighter here because I just don't have enough. Hold on. There we go. Okay. It almost looks like it's like a salmon color. Oops, on these 3 papers down here. Interesting. And then I'm going to draw the rose. I mean paint. And I'm also doing these roses in my A5 multi-year journal. And when I say multi-year, if you don't know what that is, I've basically taken a 400-page notebook or two 400-page notebooks. And I'll be using them as kind of like my own 5-year journal, except it'll only be for 4 years. I basically spread out the entries or the pages, or split them up so that one page, or essentially 2 pages, is 1 day, and then 1 year is half a page. All right, there we go. Another really fun combo, and this is more red coral than I usually go for, but it was beautiful in my journal. I love the flow and feel of this pen overall. So I gave the ink a 9, the flow a 9, and the comfort level of the pen a 10. So this unnamed blank is, well, I say a little smelly because it does need to be aired out just because of the material that it was made out of, but it's so fun. And it's the Sagittarius model is really, really comfortable to hold. Bart and I still haven't come up with a name for this, but be on the lookout for it. Lovely combination. So let's look at the Zentangle. And there's the finished Zentangle for Amario Stationary Urn Kicks. I love how it looks really psychedelic because of where the ink pools. And basically where the ink pools is where I'm going over the same spot, or where my pen starts and stops, and then that's where the pooling of the ink happens. But it's really interesting to me how these paper swatches look more pink or coral, and then the writing looks more red. Really interesting color. Not a color that I normally go for, but it was really fun to use this month. So that is Amario Stationary Urn Kicks in my Zodiac Pen Co. unnamed blank in the Sagittarius model. One thing I'm also doing is actually creating a grid of all of the inks that I've used for 15 inks over 30 days, and I'm doing a grid of roses, so I cannot wait to see that once it is all done. So those are inks 1 through 5 for my 15 inks 30 days. I am really happy with the result. My favorites were really the Anderellium Tulip Mothworm, and I really liked Toasty Joggers. Like, amazing, amazing. But I mean, the only one that was really a disappointment to me was the Wearingeul Autumn Night After 1,000 Years. But I'm wondering if I should just give it another try. We'll see. We'll see. All right, but that is it for me. Thank you all so much for watching. If you have any questions, please leave them in the comments below. If you like this video, please leave me a thumbs up and don't forget to subscribe. Thanks for watching and have yourselves a great day.